What's up, everyone? Welcome in to the stream this morning. We are going to be talking about college football in week 5. We have a monstrous slate today. We've got USC, Illinois, Pitt versus Louisville, Notre Dame, Arkansas. I'm just looking here, and that's the noon games. We've got Ohio State, Washington, Auburn versus Texas A&M. LSU versus Ole Miss. Then we've got at the 6 o'clock slate the two best games of the week by far: Oregon versus Penn State, Alabama versus Georgia. I am unbelievably excited and hyped up to get talking about this week of games. This is going to be a phenomenal day to watch some college football. I've got a ton of plays here that I've looked up, researched, done a ton of work on to start this stream here. We're going to go through all of the games. I'm going to give you a little bit of a breakdown and then talk about which ones I like the best using the Doink Sports tool here. Guys, make sure to go to doinksports.com. Check it out for yourselves. You can look at some of these games. We're talking college football, MLB, NFL, WNBA. You get the best odds from each book. Leverage and educate yourself before taking anything. There is no need for you to go out there and make a foolish play. Do what you can and do the right thing. Make sure you educate yourself before you go out and place any bets anywhere. So, with that being said, let's actually talk about the football, because that's why everyone's here. That's why it matters. Okay. So, first up, Illinois hosting USC. Illinois got the doors blown off them last week versus Indiana. They lost 63-10. Indiana took them for quite the freaking ride. I was riding with Illinois last week. As a matter of fact, I thought they would outright win the game. Pretty foolish of your boy here to think that that would happen. But man, I was not expecting, I don't think anybody was really expecting a 63-10 blowout. I'm shocked, to say the least. Just watch this game and see what happened here. The offense just could not get rolling. The defense let everything go behind them. Meanwhile, USC has been trending upward over the last few weeks. They got a pretty good victory at home last week versus Michigan State, 45-31. And I am really impressed with what the offense has had to show so far. Lincoln Riley, of course, one of the best offensive minds in college football. If there's anything that he knows, it's how to make a quarterback and backfield run efficiently. And that's exactly what's happening here at USC. I believe in their last 4 games, they're averaging damn near 52 or 53 points per game. And their defense, in my opinion, has stepped up so far this year. Now, Michigan State, they showed the same flaws that they've had for years at USC, and even dating back to Lincoln Riley's time at Oklahoma. Looking here last season with USC, they were giving up 31 points, 49 points. Let's continue to look back at some of these other really good teams. 21 points to a Wisconsin team that was god-awful. They have several losses here where they're giving up 4+ touchdowns to opposing teams. That is really the problem with USC. It's the defense. The offense has done a phenomenal job over the last 3 seasons with Lincoln Riley there. When the defense allows, though, 40+ points or even 30+ points per game, that's the problem. It's really hard to win those shootouts on a week-in, week-out basis. And so looking at this game specifically, USC on the road has not been a good team under Lincoln Riley. You can see here they are 2-10 in their last 10 matchup, or 2-10 in their last 10 matchups against the spread here of 6.5. Now, a lot of these teams are, I would say, a little bit better or maybe on par with Illinois. I think that Oregon, Michigan, Minnesota team from 2024, 2023 is probably on par or better than Illinois. But looking at some of these other matchups like Maryland last year, they outright lost that game. Washington last year, I think, is a little bit worse than what Illinois is this season. UCLA even last year, with UCLA basically falling apart. Think about it. UCLA has already fired their coach, and they're just 3 games into the season. And that team is probably a little bit better than last season's. So that's saying a lot, in my opinion. I think this USC team, it doesn't have a lot to write home about when you talk about what they've done on the road. Meanwhile, Illinois at home has not gotten the doors blown off them by any team. Now, Minnesota outright beat them last year, but that was an extremely close game. And like I said, I would put that Minnesota team on par with Illinois. As a matter of fact, they're just a little bit better. I think Illinois is still a really good team. They got embarrassed last week. And when really good teams get embarrassed, they perform well, especially at home. So for me, I'm going to be riding with Illinois plus 6.5. I think this is their get right game. And I also think the USC hype train is going a little too fast, in my opinion. I'm not ready to hop on it yet. I would need to see them win this game and win it thoroughly by maybe 10 or maybe 9 plus points. If they can win by double digits or more than one score, I would be convinced that USC could be a college football playoff contender. I mean, you see guys, the personalities on places like Fox Sports with Matt Leinart, of course, an ex-USC guy talking about how much he's a fan of USC, then I totally understand it. But statistically speaking here, Illinois at home over the last season and a half has been phenomenal. They are 9 of their last 10 covering a 6.5 point spread, and they've played some decent teams. I thought Kansas was a good team last year. They kind of underperformed later into the season. Michigan, of course, was a better team in the Big Ten last year. That Illinois won that game outright. Michigan State, they were not very good, but South Carolina, these are the games I'm kind of looking at here. South Carolina, that Duke game from earlier this season, those are good wins. At Northwestern last year in November in the cold, putting up 38 points there. I like what Illinois has to offer. Now, I do think that their defense has taken a bit of a step back. They lost several players to the NFL last year, but I think over time they will recover. So, first pickup, we've got Illinois plus 6.5. Let's move on to that Duke Syracuse game. A lot of people are expecting this to be a barn burner shootout. The only thing is Steve Angeli, the starting quarterback for Syracuse, was injured last week versus Clemson. So in comes transfer Ricky Collins. He transfers in from LSU, and I don't believe he's ever started a game. I could go back and take a look at that real quick. We can go down here using the doinksports.com tool, scroll on down to the player props, hit Ricky Collins, look at his game log here. And these are all the games that he's ever played. And the most pass attempts he's ever had was actually in that Clemson game last week when he filled in for Angeli. 3 for 8, 37% completion percentage. He's actually projected to have quite the day. His over-under on yards is 248.5. Obviously, he's never hit it. Duke's defense has allowed that in 5 of their last 10 games. I thought that this was a crazy prop to put on a guy that has yet to even start a football game. That being said, my play for this game is indeed going to be the over 59.5. Not only do I think Syracuse is going to be able to put up points here, number one, it's in a dome. Statistically speaking, when games are indoors, points, the over-under goes well over its expected total the majority of the time. We're talking over 60%. And then when we're talking about Duke versus Syracuse here, I think both offenses are extremely explosive. I don't think either defense is that great. Now, Clemson last week with Syracuse actually looked great. Or I apologize, the other way around. Syracuse's defense versus Clemson looked great, but I just seriously doubt that they can continue on that tangent here. I mean, they let up 45 to Tennessee. They even allowed UConn to score 20. Now, that's a UConn team that's a little underrated, but even Colgate scoring 24. And then, of course, Clemson scoring, I believe, a few of those points later in the game. Yeah, see here, they allowed – well, actually, they allowed 14 points in the first half and only 7 in the second half. So pretty impressive performance, but that's a Clemson offense that has been collapsing over the last 3 weeks since the start of the season. They have not done well. I think maybe Dabo Swinney is out the door at Clemson. I'm shocked at what their season's turning out to be. But going back to my main point here, Syracuse here, I do think their defense allows a lot of points. And similar to Duke here, 33 to NC State, 34 to Tulane, 45 to Illinois. I just don't think their defense can stop a runny nose right now. Manny Diaz, a defensive guy, has got to get it under wraps. and take care of getting stops on specifically third down. That's where I'm concerned here. We see the team total of over under 31 and a half and over under 27 and a half. That's a solid 59 and a half over there. I think this game goes well over this. This should be a absolute shootout. I'm thinking Darian Mensah is going to have a good day. His projected over under on yards is 288. That's sky high. Syracuse has allowed that in only 3 of their last 10 games, but looking at who they allowed it to, it's an equivalent to what Darian Mensah is. And so we see Washington State last year, or actually this was Iowa State, I believe. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but Cam Ward torched them. Clemson torched them through the air at least. So, and this was coming a lot of these in garbage time. I think Mensa can absolutely hit this over, but that won't be an official pick. My official pick here is over 59 and a half at minus 105 using MGM. That is my play for this game. Let's continue because we've got 45 minutes until kickoff, and we have a lot of games that we still need to talk about. If you have any questions about any games or you want to know my insight on some of them, leave it in the comments. I'm going to talk about almost every single big game here. Let's go ahead and hop into Notre Dame, Arkansas. There's only one play that I really like here, I believe. Maybe it's 2, but I think it's just 1, and that is a Braylon Russell anytime touchdown. So going and looking at the touchdown plays for Arkansas in the red zone, they are running the ball 64% of the time, and Braylon Russell is taking 43.5% of that share. That's really impressive. Looking at Notre Dame, they are 104th in the country in allowing rushing touchdowns right now. Even last year, they were stout, but there obviously has flipped. This Notre Dame defense, by the way, let's look at the sides here, has just absolutely let the floodgates open here. 27 for Miami, 30 to Purdue last week, and of course, that painful 41 to Texas A&M at home. Notre Dame's defense has got to figure out how to get their stuff in check. I think that this is a get-right game for them, even though it's on the road. But I'm specifically looking here at Braylon Russell, 43.5, and I'm thinking this is absolutely the play here at plus 210 at Fanatics. I think that's a great line there. There's a lot of value. Now, Mike Washington, of course, gets a fair share of carries. He actually averages more touchdowns per game than Braylon Russell, but here you're buying damn near 100 points worth of value, and you're still getting a guy that gets the lion's share of red zone touches. I think Arkansas puts up points in this game. The over-under is at 64, and Arkansas's total is at 29.5. If there's 4 touchdowns scored in this game, I think Braylon Russell will get one of them, especially considering these statistics here. So with that being said, that's my play for this game. Overall, talking about the spread and the over-under, I would stay away from both of them. I don't think that we can really judge what Notre Dame and Arkansas look like compared to common opponents. Obviously, Arkansas has had some heartbreaking losses, just as Notre Dame has. Ole Miss, they fumbled with a chance to go win the game. Memphis, the exact same thing, fumbling at the last second with a chance to win the game. I believe they were already in field goal range, down 32-21. So that's absolutely devastating from Arkansas here. Of course, Memphis runs out the clock with their backup quarterback, which was absolutely crazy. But looking at the spread here of Notre Dame minus 4.5, this is a line where Vegas, you can clearly see, still has a lot of respect for Notre Dame. This Arkansas offense, however, Vegas also has respect for. That's why this total is at 64. I don't think any time last season you would have seen Notre Dame's total be anywhere close to 64. I mean, look at some of these games. I mean, even the Indiana, the Georgia game, Penn State, none of those are coming remotely close to covering that 64. Going and looking at the over-under here, they're only covering that in 3 of their last 10 games. Looking at their last 15, it's 4 out of 15. Even with Arkansas, looking at Arkansas here, they're 6 out of their last 15. However, both of these teams, obviously, to start this season, are trending in the exact opposite direction. I mean, 59, 70, 76, 63 for Arkansas, 51, 81, and 86 here for Notre Dame. Don't touch that over-under. I could definitely see it going under, but would I be shocked to say it's going over? Absolutely not. In terms of spread, I'm a Notre Dame fan. I like who they have on their roster. They have yet to put it all together, obviously. I think they can do that versus Arkansas, but I'm not touching this 4.5. That just screams trap game to me. I think this spread will be a lot closer, maybe even Arkansas favored if they win these nail biters against Ole Miss and Memphis. So, with that being said, that's Notre Dame versus Arkansas. Let's see. I see a comment here from James Hill saying, not sure if Arkansas's defense is good enough to beat Notre Dame. I pretty much agree with that. If I had a lean here, I'm leaning Notre Dame. Arkansas's defense has allowed 41 and 32 to Memphis and Ole Miss the last couple of weeks. I kind of feel the same way. I think Notre Dame's offense has started to click over the last couple of weeks. Obviously, that 40 against Texas A&M is really impressive. That 56 on Purdue, not so impressive, but still putting up 7 touchdowns, or actually 8 touchdowns, is really good against any Power 4 opponent. So I lean Notre Dame, but that's not something that I'm willing to make official here. Moving on, let's talk about Cincinnati versus Kansas. I think that's my next play here. Player props, looking at that, there's one guy that I really like. Let's see here. Cyrus Allen, over 3.5 catches. Looking at this big game here versus Nebraska, you can see last season, we can plug Cyrus Allen, look at his game log, and we can see who he's playing with last year. We see that he was with Texas A&M back in 2024. Didn't start a lot of these games. Don't actually know if that was due to injury or not, but this was not one of the major targets of Texas A&M. You see here on average, he's under 10% of the target share from last season. But this year, as you can see, that number has ticked up tremendously. We're talking 22% or 23% average here. He's getting on average about 5.5 targets per game, and he's catching at a high rate, over 60%. As a matter of fact, I think damn near over 70%. So I'm really impressed with what he's got going here. With Cincinnati being on the road, Cincinnati has yet to play a true road game. They played Nebraska in a neutral site. I think that you lean on your best receivers. Brendan Sorsby is the quarterback for Cincinnati. His attempts have gone down in the last couple of weeks. Obviously, these are blowout games versus Bowling Green and Northwestern. I think that Cyrus Allen is going to get the lion's share of these targets here. And that's why I like this over 3.5 at underdog plus 184. If you wanted to buy this down here to plus or over 2.5 at 136, I wouldn't hate it. But the fact that for one more catch, we're talking about 100 and actually damn near 200 points worth of value here. Or actually around 150, 160 points of value. But still, for one more catch, 160 points of value at underdog, that's worth it to me. That's why I like the plus 184. But in this game, sides and totals wise, I don't like either of these. I love this Kansas team. Their offense has been rolling. They had an absolute barn burner versus Missouri earlier this year. I loved watching that game. Jalen Daniels is probably a top 5 favorite quarterback of mine in the league right now. I think he's a tremendous player. Meanwhile, Cincinnati versus Nebraska played really good defense, but their offense just could not get rolling. Matter of fact, let's go back and take a look at that game. Brendan Sorsby, 13 for 25, 69 yards versus Nebraska. Not an impressive performance at all. Meanwhile, like I said, Jalen Daniels has been having quite the season. Looking at what he did versus Missouri, 240 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception total. West Virginia last week, I thought, even though his completion percentage was really low, the efficiency was still high. 3 touchdowns with just 12 completions, 69 yards on the ground. This is a guy who consistently hits that over 200 total yards. Right now, his line sits at 214.5. I wouldn't touch that just because this Cincinnati defense has shown to me that they are capable of slowing down offenses. Dylan Raiola, I think, is a really good quarterback. They held him to 243 yards, which is well under probably his projected line if he was playing at Kansas. Looking at Bowling Green, Drew Pine, actually, ex-Missouri player, comes in and kind of lights him up for real. But I think looking at some of these other games like versus Kansas State and TCU, West Virginia, and Arizona State last year, even though Sam Leavitt was out, We see this under is hitting 60% of the time. And with Jalen Daniels, who loves to use his legs here, as you can see, he averages 8 carries a game, only 24 pass attempts. I don't love that. I don't love that 214.5. I do think that this is a quarterback in Jalen Daniels that can definitely perform at an extremely high level. The question is will the offensive game plan permit him to go over this line? And as we can see here, it's a 50-50 shot. So don't see a ton of value in that. But we're kind of the time is racing by us. So we're gonna have to continue to move at a much faster pace here. Let's talk Utah versus West Virginia. Now, Utah was really disappointing last week. They lost to Texas Tech, and that's after they injured Baron Morton, a Texas Tech starting quarterback. The question was not what Utah was doing defensively, even though they let up 34 points. I believe 14 of those points came in the second half. Let's take a look at it. Oh, no, 24 points came in the second half. And that's just kind of after the game got ugly. Looking at the first half, it was only 10-3. And that was because this Utah defense is pretty damn stout. The Utah offense just could not get the ball rolling. But looking here at West Virginia at home, 70% of the time in their last year and a half, even though they've got a new coach in Rich Rodriguez, they're covering this 12.5 point spread. I think Pitt and Utah are kind of on the same level. And West Virginia just 2 weeks ago outright beat Pitt in the backyard brawl. I think this is a West Virginia team that's up and down, but is a little bit slept on. Obviously, they lose their 2 road games to Ohio and Kansas. I think Utah, traveling literally across the country, is going to have a tough time covering this spread. They've only done it in 4 of their last 10. And looking at who they did it against, Utah State, UCF, who was terrible last year, UCLA, and Wyoming, I think West Virginia is better than all 4 of these teams. And we can see here that Utah is kind of cutting it close to that 12.5 here with 14 and 17 against Utah State and UCF. So I definitely think that West Virginia covers this spread at 12.5. If you wanted to get it all the way up to 14.5, you're looking at minus 141 on ESPN. I don't hate that as well. As a matter of fact, I might even buy that up, and I'll actually take that as my official play here. Minus 141 plus 14.5 there, just to cover that 2 touchdowns. You're buying 2 points worth of total for around I don't know, 40-ish points. It doesn't sound great, but that security blanket of having that 2 touchdown blanket there is really what matters to me. So that's a little bit of a riskier play, but in my opinion, you play it a little safer because you don't have that 12.5 sticking out like a sore thumb. I think 14.5 is a safer play here. But anyways, I'll continue. We're going to talk about this Ohio State West Virginia game. I mean, not Ohio State West Virginia, Ohio State versus Washington game. The Utah offense, as I see here that James is talking about before I get into this Ohio State game, it's really inconsistent. I mean, we've seen Devin Dampier actually has had a decent year, but last week struggled to say the least against a Texas Tech defense who, of course, spent a ton of money in the transfer portal. But overall, I was very disappointed with Utah's execution, and I don't necessarily think it's going to be that great going all the way across the country to West Virginia. So moving on, we're going to talk about one play that I like in this Ohio State game. They travel on the road to Washington. A lot of these lines out here, this has moved, by the way, a ton. I believe Ohio State opened as a 10.5 point favorite. That got bought all the way down to a 7.5, and now it's back up at 8.5. The fact that this line and this line has moved a considerable amount makes me want to stay away from it. I think Ohio State is far and away the better team here. Washington, of course, a little underrated. No AP top 25 votes for a team that's 3-0 and has not played absolute garbage opponents. I mean, Washington State, of course, I think is a good opponent, especially considering that it's on the road, and Washington dominated them. Now, with that being said, I like their offensive weapons here. Looking at their quarterback, Demon Williams, Demon Williams, and then their running back Jonah Coleman. These are two guys who I think could easily be in the Heisman race if they beat Ohio State today. Can they do that? I don't know. I mean, looking at some of these games from last year, Penn State, well, we'll look at their home games actually. They're covering this 100% of the time. 8.5 point spread. Now, of course, we're talking about them being heavy underdogs at home, but Ohio State's defense is dominant. Looking at the looking at the team props here and looking at opposing teams scoring allowed, Ohio State is only allowing 12.6 points per game in their last 10 games. I mean, if we want to extrapolate that out to 30 games and take a look at it there, I mean, they're only allowing it in 3 of their last 30. And Washington State's line is at 21.5 points. I am going to take this under. I think Ohio State's defense can continue to play well. This is an Ohio State team that, of course, has not played phenomenal opponents out here in the last couple of weeks, but that game versus Texas, the game versus Texas last year, Notre Dame, Oregon. I mean, we're talking about top tier caliber teams, and this Ohio State team returns a lot of talent from last season. Caleb Downs, Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, and I think they bring in some really good talent in the backfield and CJ Donaldson. So my 2 plays for this game are going to be the under 21.5 for Washington. If you want to get that at 22, even though that doesn't really make that big of a difference, minus 125. I would maybe even consider this 20.5, but to get that 3 touchdown juice there at 21.5, if we want to track that out and take a look at some of these, BetMGM's got it for minus 105. So looking at that, that's something that I'm going to consider and absolutely take. Let me write that down actually, because I didn't have that in my notebook. Let me go ahead and continue and talk about my other play here. Touchdowns. Everybody loves anytime touchdowns, right? I mean, I know I do. So looking at what I'm seeing here, CJ Donaldson is getting damn near 50% of the red zone touchdown share. Ohio State, of course, runs the football in the red zone at an extremely high rate, 65%. Looking at the anytime touchdown here, Underdog has it at 482. I don't know if that's a glitch or like a promotional special here, but you can get it plus odds at 105 or at 105 at both places, actually, Fanatics and FanDuel. That is definitely a play that I would be making here. I think CJ Donaldson is the red zone back. And as you can see here in his first 3 games, he scored touchdowns in 2 of them. And that's versus Grambling, where he only got 5 carries. I mean, if you give him 19 carries in a game like he did versus Texas, I definitely think he'll put the ball in the end zone. Had that long rush versus Grambling. I think that was his touchdown run for 27 yards. Other than that, I don't love either of his props here. I think Washington's defense is pretty stout, if you asked me up front. I don't necessarily know if the over-under will hit in this game. I think if Washington puts up 20-ish points, Ohio State's probably putting up 35, 40 points. But with that being said, would I be shocked to say this score ends up being probably like 30, 33, maybe 34-10? Absolutely not. So the spread here and the over-under, I wouldn't touch just because I don't know how Ohio State's offense is going to look like on the road. They've yet to play a road game. So it's a wait and see for me. Julian saying his lines are pretty damn high. Obviously, he passed the ball for a ton of yards versus Ohio and Grambling. But I mean, what else do you expect, right? So with that being said, I think taking this at or taking the under team prop here for under 21.5 for Washington is a great play. Ohio State at 30.5, I'd stay away from that. I don't know how ugly of a game this is going to be. So looking at the weather report, by the way, it's supposed to be 72 and sunny, clear skies, should be good for passing the football here. But overall, I just think that Ohio State gets the job done. Maybe it's a close game. I think obviously Ohio State wins this one. I don't really see a lot of upset potential here, but I love what I've seen so far from this team. And so I think their defense is going to stand out. Now, let's continue. I've still got a ton of plays to talk about. We're talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 more. So let's continue because we are talking a lot of ball here. Auburn, Texas A&M. This is probably the most action that I have for today. We're talking player props wise. Quick note, Horatio Fields for Auburn is out for this game. And so Eric Singleton and Cam Coleman are going to be the guys that get the job done. This is an Auburn team who's on the road for a second time in the last 2 weeks. They were at Oklahoma last week. And looking at Eric Singleton and what he did, he had 11 targets, 9 receptions for 60 yards. I don't like the 44.5. Texas A&M versus wide receiver twos has done a pretty damn good job covering them over the last 10 games, going back into last season. Looking at Cam Coleman, he was able to torch them, but obviously he's the wide receiver one now. I like more than anything this over 4.5 for plus 225 on underdog. I think Eric Singleton becomes the short game wide receiver. He gets a lot of screens, a lot of 5-yard routes. He's not the deep ball threat that Cam Coleman has been over the last season or so as a now true sophomore. So Eric Singleton over 4.5 at plus 225. I think that is a phenomenal play here to take. If you can, obviously, if you're not using underdog here, you can take a look at Hard Rock's got it plus 105. I think that's a great play, but I'm looking at this plus 225 and I'm saying that's undeniably good. So second prop that I like here is Jeremiah Cobb, who was out last week versus Oklahoma early in that game with a hip stinger, but Auburn took him off the injury report last week. Or I mean, not last week. They took him off the injury report yesterday. I think he's fully healthy going into this game. And looking at what he was doing in the first 3, 16, 11, 19 carries versus USA, Ball State, and Baylor, I think he's the bell cow back. I fully expect this number to be 10 plus. And I definitely think, as you can see here, we're going to shop this down to 43.5 minus 110 with Hard Rock here. I think that is absolutely a play to take. You could see here that it's once you get actually, we'll filter this out real quick, more than 10 rushing attempts by player. You see that the line here is damn near close with some of these other teams with Texas A&M. Now, we're talking specifically in these last 4 games because that's the Mike Elko era. 50, 37, 43, and 68. And that under right here, these two come from USC in a bowl game. And we're talking, I believe that's New Mexico. Or New Mexico State, actually. So not very clear as to what Texas A&M's defense is going to look like. I mean, that's Jadarian Price, looked really good versus them last week. That Notre Dame offensive line, of course, is stout. This is a Texas A&M team, by the way, coming off a bye. So I don't know what they're going to look like. Mike Elko off a bye. I would have to go and Google his record and whatnot. But I definitely think Jeremiah Cobb over 43.5, especially if he gets 12, 13, 14, maybe even 15 carries, is going to hit that over 43.5 line. Last thing I want to talk about is Auburn under 22.5. Looking at the team props here, we see that Auburn's team total is at under 22.5. Actually, if you wanted to buy that down to 21.5, it's only 2 points. So I would stick here at under 22.5. Looking at what they've been able to do on the road, it's definitely not what they've been able to do in their last 10. I mean, obviously the Hugh Freeze era, this is a new Auburn team. They put up 38 against Baylor. They put up 17 versus Oklahoma. I think that's kind of on track with what we're going to see from Auburn today. Looking at Texas A&M at home and what they've done, they're only allowing 17 points per game. 3 out of their last 10 have gone over at home. Now, this is a Notre Dame game that was in Texas A&M at Kyle Allen Stadium last year. They only put up 23. That's the Notre Dame team that went to the national championship. LSU, I think their offense is far better last season than what Auburn's is this year. And then UTSA kind of put up a couple of garbage time touchdowns there. Or maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe they put up a few first half points. As a matter of fact, we could see here. Oh no, they put up 14 in the second half. So those were some garbage time plays. I definitely think that Texas A&M can hold Auburn under 22.5, especially with that suspect Auburn pass protection. Now, Texas A&M has not been phenomenal getting to the quarterback, I don't believe. I'd have to double check and look that up, but I definitely think this game is going under 22.5 for Auburn here with Hard Rock. So those are my three plays. Even though I like Auburn in some player props, I don't love them in the team total game. I think Texas A&M's defense is a bend don't break D. Mike Elko, of course, a defensive specialist here. I think they're going to struggle. Auburn is going to struggle in the red zone versus Texas A&M. We're going to see a lot of field goals from them, and that's also been a little suspect with Alec McPherson being out with, I believe, an illness where he lost a ton of weight, not being consistent in practice. Of course, I mean this guy he has missed a ton of time over his last season and a half. So don't love that Auburn 22.5 total there. If I had to lean here talking about this game, I'd lean the under because I think Auburn's defense is also pretty damn good, holding that Oklahoma offense to 22 points, I believe. I think it was 22-17 last week before Oklahoma got that safety to close out the game. And I would also lean Texas A&M -7. If you could get that down to -6.5, I think that would be great as well. The reason I say that is because Auburn is coming off of a grueling physical game versus Oklahoma. They had to travel from Auburn to Oklahoma, back to Auburn, and now they're at Texas A&M. That is a horrible scheduling scenario for any coach in college football. So with that being said, I lean Texas A&M. As a matter of fact, I'm going to pick them -6.5. Let's see where we can find that line. You can get it or BetMGM's got it at -115. I like that a lot. So that's going to be my two, or actually I have four plays here for Texas A&M and Auburn. I love the action here. I think there's a lot of good value in this game. Of course, guys, I'm finding all this good value using doinksports.com. Be sure to take a look at it. You can look at some primetime NFL games for free. Check out a couple of college football games as well. And if you're interested in making a purchase because you want to leverage everything you do and educate yourself before you take plays, make sure you use my code PLIZONT. That's PLIZONT for 25% off of any purchase that you make. Now, with that being said, guys, I want to throw in just a little bit of information here. I think, or not information, this is just kind of a PSA. Men's mental health, gambling addiction is on the rise. I definitely think you need to be safe. And if you're going to do that, please educate yourself before you do anything. It's not worth it to go out there and just place bets willy-nilly. Don't do that. If you're going to gamble responsibly. Use this tool here to leverage everything and maybe even change your mind and take plays away. So that being said, let's talk about the next game, probably the third best on the slate today, LSU versus Ole Miss. Let's get into it. I have, I believe, one play here, and it's going against the grain from everybody that I've talked to. If you guys tuned into the stream last night, I had my friend Cam from Saturdays in the SEC. He runs a great podcast if you want to go plug that or not plug that. If you want to go look at that on YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, and I maybe Instagram, but mainly YouTube. It's where they post the vast majority of their segment. He said he loved the over in this game. My question though is looking at the over-under side or over-under in this game. LSU is only allowing, I believe, 7 or maybe even 8 points per game this season. Meanwhile, Ole Miss, of course, is putting up a ton. But we've yet to see them play a defense the caliber of LSU. That's an LSU defense that got 5 turnovers versus Florida. And then on the flip side, this is an LSU offense that has been struggling, to say the least. I mean, versus Southeastern Louisiana, that is not a game to write home about. I'm not that impressed with what they did. They struggled versus Louisiana Tech, versus Florida, 5 turnovers, one of those being a pick 6. So with 4 turnovers that give the offense the football, you only put up 13 points versus Florida. That's awful. Clemson, that game is looking worse and worse as the season goes on. I definitely think we're going to take a look here at the under. I have yet to see LSU's offense perform at a high level. I think they're a top 10 team, but that's because of their defense. And if they can slow this Ole Miss team down just a little bit, I definitely think the under is going to hit. LSU at over under 27 and a half. It's questionable. I mean, if you can get that at 28 and a half under for minus 128, I would definitely consider playing that. Ole Miss's total is at 29 and a half. To me, I wouldn't touch it just because they are, of course, especially at home, torching teams over and over and over again. But if you ask me which game this most likely looks like, I'm saying it looks like this Georgia game last year, where Georgia's defense is stout, LSU or Ole Miss offense is electric. Georgia's offense has issues, and Ole Miss's defense is more than capable of getting the job done. The line is also very similar. Ole Miss is a 2.5-point favorite. They were a 1.5-point dog last year. I think this under goes well under 57 and a half at minus 101, but we can take a look at the over under and actually find a major sports book to support this. Let's click that up real quick and talk about it. 57 and a half. You can get that under. Let's take a look. Bet 365 has got it at minus 110. So look for that. I think there's a lot of value in the under here. A lot of people are slamming that over. I think this game actually opened up at 54 and a half. So it's up 3 points, which is a lot. It means the public is pushing this thing up and up and up. So with that being said, that's my play for this game. Let's go ahead and talk about Mississippi State versus Tennessee. A lot of people are thinking that this is a trap game. I've heard several people have Mississippi State +7, +7.5. Or I've seen, at the start of this week, I believe Mississippi State was down at 9.5. I don't love the play at +7, 8, or 9. I definitely think you could be looking at a trap game. Mississippi State, of course, has played well above their expectations, winning 4 games so far this season. That great upset versus Arizona State. But here's the thing that concerns me is looking at Mississippi State. They put up 34 against Southern Miss. They put up 63 against Alcorn State, 38 against Northern Illinois. But look, they played a semi-competent defense in Arizona State. They only put up 24. And by the way, 7 of those 24 came on a last-second touchdown versus Arizona State. As a matter of fact, you can see here, they only scored 7 points in the second half, and that was on that last-second bomb from Blake Shapen to win the game, actually, with like 30 seconds remaining. So that being said, I think the prop here to take team prop-wise or just anything in this game is Mississippi State under 27 and a half. You can actually buy that up to 28 and a half, but I like the 27 and a half because you get minus 113 here at FanDuel. I think this is the play to take. I think Tennessee's defense is actually pretty underrated, 24 and 26 against Syracuse and UAB. I think those both came in garbage time. As you can see, UAB put up 17 and Syracuse only put up 14 points in the first half, I think. This is very similar to what Mississippi State is going to be able to do in this game. Even though it's at home and this is screaming trap and a lot of people are taking the +7.5, if that does happen and Mississippi State covers, it's because this will be a slow burning game. And I definitely think if that's the case, the Mississippi State under 27.5 is going to happen. That's going to be my prop for that game. I've got about 15 minutes left, and I've got, I believe, 2 more games to talk about. We're going to be getting deep into these games. Oregon, Penn State. Let's talk about that one first. A little bit of a preview here. Penn State 4-20 versus top 10 teams under James Franklin. Maybe Boise State was a top 10 team last year, but I'm not counting that, guys. I mean, that game was clearly lopsided. Nobody was picking Boise State to win that game. I wouldn't chalk that up as a top 10 win for James Franklin, quite frankly. But that being said, Penn State has not beaten a top 6 opponent at home on the road in a neutral site in 8 seasons. It's been since 2016. Can this be the time that Penn State gets the monkey off their back? I don't know. The one thing that I do know is that I think that this game is going to go under 53. Looking at Oregon on the road, it's 50-50. Last year, they had a god-awful game against Wisconsin versus Michigan. Their offense was rolling, but Purdue, they shut them down defensively. UCLA, they shut them down. They had Ohio State, by the way, in the playoffs last year. They did not look good offensively. A lot of those points came in garbage time. I think this is a relatively low scoring game. Penn State at home is only going over 53 20% of the time. Those 2 out of 10, by the way, come against Nevada and Villanova. So looking at when Penn State actually plays real competition, SMU, Notre Dame, Maryland, Washington, Ohio State, these games are well under the 53. I think what's most likely to happen in this game is we don't see a touchdown until the second half. We might see a lot of field goal attempts. I think both of these defenses are extremely talented. I like Oregon's offense better than I like Penn State's offense, but the problem with it is that Oregon's on the road. This is a quarterback in a relatively young Oregon roster that has not seen a hostile environment like this ever in the Dan Lanning history of coaching at Oregon. He's been there since 2022, and I think the Penn State wideout is probably a top 3 most dangerous place to play in college football. So I think their offense kind of stalls out here. Penn State's offense, I've yet to see it really get rolling. Drew Aller has been very disappointing so far this season. That game earlier on in the season, I believe it was Nevada. I think he looked okay. Let's go and take a look at his game log here. Yeah, Nevada, he was 22 for 26, 217 yards, 1 touchdown. But versus FIU and Villanova, I didn't see a lot to write home about. I mean, a combined here 14, 13. What is that? 27 incompletions versus FIU and Villanova, an FCS opponent. That's not great at all. Not to mention he threw that interception versus Villanova last week. So not very impressed with his game. And as we can see here, when he plays real competition, it doesn't look that great. Notre Dame, Boise State even was able to kind of hold him down here in the passing yards wise, but Penn State dominated the line of scrimmage. That's kind of what I'm expecting overall. That's why I like this play at under 52 and a half, I believe. Another play that I really like is the over under first quarter, 10 and a half. The fact that people think that Oregon and Penn State are both going to score at least a touchdown and more than a field goal in the first quarter is crazy to me. I'm slamming this under 10 and a half. I'm taking the under 53 and a half. I think these are both good props to take a look at. If I was more confident in one rather than the other, I'm more confident in the 10 and a half going under than I am the total. But with that being said, I'm very confident in both of these plays. I've done a ton of research here. I mean, looking here, you can see this is going over 70% of the time, but let's take a look and flip it using the Doink Sports tool here. And we can see from last season, 2024 and on, they've only hit it in 2 of their last, I believe that's 6. And then Penn State has also, since 2024 at home, has only done this in 2 of their last 10. So that's why I really like this play here at under 53 the lines just moved to 53. Let's take a look here and see if we can find an under 53 and a half. Yeah, under 53 and a half here, minus 108. Let's track that up and take a look at some major markets here. FanDuel's got it at minus 110. So perfect. So the under 53 and a half here, I like that a lot. I'm writing that down real quick just so I can keep track of it personally. So now let's continue. And once again, guys, before we continue to talk about these plays, we've got about 9 more minutes, and I'll be talking about Alabama versus Georgia. Let's talk about the fact that this tool, doinksports.com, is great. You can leverage everything. You can hedge. You can shop lines. Take a look at every single major sports book out there. Be sure to check it out for yourselves for these major games in college football and the NFL. Use code PLIZONT, as you can see at the bottom here. That's PLIZONT for 25% off of anything that you purchase. And then also, I see that there's quite a few of you in here. Be sure to check me out on social media at Plazant for any socials. I talk NFL, college football, and the NBA on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. I'm on here on Doink on Twitter. So with that being said, let's continue and talk about Alabama versus Georgia to close it out. I actually have a ton of action here on this game. We're going to take a look at 4 different plays to start. This is probably the riskiest of them all. I'm fairly confident in it. So let's take a look at the sides here. I'm looking at Alabama money line in the first quarter, plus 110. Alabama off the script has been tremendous under Kalen DeBoer. They've looked great so far this year. I mean, going back and even considering that first game versus Florida State, guys, they were dominant in that first quarter drive. The on script stuff for Alabama is probably some of the best, if not the best in the country. Meanwhile, Georgia has gotten off to a fairly slow start over the last year for Kirby Smart. I mean, just 3 points against Florida, losing the first quarter in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of their last 10 games, tying it, of course, in 2 of their last 10. I definitely think money line wise, this is the play to go. Alabama has outright won this in 7 of their last 10. And let's take a look. Looking at the last 15, we can look at Georgia. They were up 21-0 in the first quarter versus the Bulldogs. And that comes off of a couple turnovers, but Alabama's drives were extremely efficient there. Even though it's on the road, I definitely think Alabama can take advantage of how dominant they are in the first quarter. So I like that play a lot. Let's go ahead and keep talking, though. So player props wise, let's get into some informative information from your boy. Jam Miller is coming back from injury. He got injured in the offseason. He has not played a game so far for Alabama, but he was expected to be the running back one and take the lion's share of the carries for the Crimson Tide. He's back today. I don't think he's 100% healthy. He's coming back out of kind of necessity for this Alabama team. I think this is damn near a must win for the Crimson Tide if they want to continue down the season and try to be considered for the playoffs. If you lose this game, you got to be perfect for the rest of the year. And I don't know if they can do that. So Jam Miller comes back. I don't know if he's 100% healthy. And that's why I think Kevin Riley, who's been the highlight for Alabama's run game over the last couple of weeks, is going to get a fair share of rush attempts today. And that's why I like him at over 22.5. You could even get that at 29.5, but I like it at 22.5 using, I believe that's Pick 6 DraftKings. You can get it with FanDuel at minus 114 as well. So with that being said, that's what my play here is in the Alabama run game. I think Kevin Riley does get around 7 or 8 targets or 7 or 8 rush attempts. And if he can average 3 or 3.5 rush yards per attempt, then he'll definitely go over this 22.5 line. The next line I like, Jeremy Bernard has been the bailout player for Alabama on the road. Looking at his target share over the last 3 games for Alabama, 8, 7, and 14 for Florida State. He has easily become Ty Simpson's favorite target. We see here versus Wisconsin, he didn't get a ton of work, but that was mainly because Ryan Williams returned, got 6 targets in that Wisconsin game, but we really didn't see Alabama spin the ball that much in the Wisconsin game, just due to the fact that it was an absolute blowout. So I definitely think this is going to be a much closer game, and Jeremy Bernard has been Ty Simpson's bailout guy. I definitely think he goes over this 4.5 line at plus 153 using underdog. I think taking plus points here is great value, especially considering that if you go down to 3.5, you're at minus 139. So we're talking about over 100 points in value for just 1 additional catch. That's a great play to me. It's a little bit of a riskier one, but I think there's a lot of value there. And then next up, I'm going to be talking about, I believe, my 4th prop here for this game, as I've got just a few minutes left. It's going to be Nate Frazier, an anytime touchdown. Alabama, going back to last year, has been pretty good against defending against rushing touchdowns. But this year they've let up a couple. And that's what I'm thinking here for Alabama. They're 52nd in the country in allowing rushing touchdowns. Nate Frazier, this Georgia offense is running the ball 84% of the time in the red zone. And Nate Frazier, of course, is the lead back here for Georgia in the run game. He's at plus 201 using underdog, but you can find it at plus 110 using flip or minus 110 using FanDuel. I think if Georgia is going to score the football this game, they're going to have to punch one in. And I definitely think it's going to be at the hands of Nate Frazier, who hasn't had a ton of action in these first few games versus some, low FCS opponents. Let's go down and take a look here. Let's filter it out to 10 games, I believe. I wonder why this. Let's scroll up, as a matter of fact, or scroll down, excuse me. Let's go look at Nate Frazier in his first 3 games. Yeah, just 14 attempts versus Austin P, 11 attempts versus Marshall. That was a blowout. Both of these blowout games. I think he's going to be scoring the ball. Scored 2 versus Austin P. Versus Tennessee, 14 carries, 73 yards. Gunnar Stockton in that game was airing the ball out. 2 touchdowns for him in the air. Looking at Chauncey Bowers, who didn't score a touchdown versus Tennessee or Marshall, I think if you had to choose between the two, Nate Frazier is going to be the guy who gets the ball here versus Alabama. He's definitely the starter for this team, and he's far and away the 3-down back here. So I understand how you can see here that Chauncey Bowens has scored 2 touchdowns, but that, again, came in some garbage time moments versus Austin P there. All right, last play that I'm going to talk about, I believe, let's go and take a look. So I've been using this hit rater tool, by the way, using Doink Sports to just kind of shop around. Some of these are a little bit messed up here just because the odds that some of these books put out are just a little strange. So I filter it out and I look at minus 120 plays to about 110 plays. And I specifically look at some of these markets here that I think are just really interesting. I try to find good value, and I'm specifically looking for hit rates that happen over the last 5 or 10 games at a high level for teams that are for the teams themselves and then versus their opponents here. And I see Micah Ford under 3.5 receptions, minus 102 using underdog. I don't know if let's look at his last 30 games using the Doink Sports tool. He's gotten this in one of his last 13 games. He's hit the over 3.5 in one of his last 13 games. I like the under here using minus 102 using underdog. I think that's a tremendous play here. There's a ton of value in that. Let's take a look at the under minus 102. You can find that on underdog. I definitely think that's of high value. But with that being said, guys, we have hit the 11 o'clock mark. I believe I've talked about everything. Real quick, I will just give you a recap of what I've got here. Illinois plus 6.5, Duke Syracuse over 49 or 59.5, Braylon Russell anytime touchdown for Arkansas, Cyrus Allen over 39.5 receiving yards for Cincinnati, West Virginia plus 12.5, CJ Donaldson anytime touchdown for Ohio State, Jeremiah Cobb over 43.5 rushing yards for Auburn, Eric Singleton over 4.5 receptions for Auburn under 22.5 total points. LSU under 56.5. Let's see. What else have I got here? Mississippi State under 27.5 points. Oregon, Penn State under 10.5. I've also got the under 53.5 total, but that under 10.5 is for the first quarter. And then moving on, we've got Alabama money line in the first quarter. Kevin Riley for Alabama over 24.5 rush yards. Jeremy Bernard over 4.5 receptions for Alabama. Nate Frazier, an anytime touchdown for Georgia. And Micah Ford, under 3.5 receptions for Stanford. That's going to do it, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to take a look at all of my different social medias at Plaisant, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Good luck to everyone out